February of 1889, I was standing at Timber Creek Station with ice fog so thick I couldn't see my own boots, waiting on a stagecoach that was 3 days overdue. Wind comes screaming down from them peaks like the devil's own breath. And when that coach finally rolled in, near froze solid, the woman who stepped off looked like she'd been dragged through hell backwards. Face raw from crying, dress torn at the hem, carpetbag held together with nothing but twine and desperation. She was shaken so hard her teeth rattled, and I knew right then my quiet life was over. I didn't know her name yet. Didn't know she was running from a lie that had destroyed her whole life back east. Didn't know she'd save my nephew from silence, or that she'd thaw something in me I thought died 8 winters back with my Sarah. By spring thaw, we'd either be a family, or we'd all be dead in the snow. All I knew about Beatrice Holloway before she stepped off that stage was what the marriage broker's letter told me. 32 years old, educated, piano teacher from Philadelphia, seeking arrangement with respectable Western man. The photograph showed a woman with kind eyes and a careful smile, wearing what looked like her Sunday best. The woman who stumbled down them icy steps looked like she'd aged 10 years in the 3 weeks it took to get here. I caught her elbow soon as her boot hit the platform, kept her from going face first into the snow. She flinched at my touch like I'd struck her, then looked up at me with eyes so raw from crying they was nearly swollen shut. "Mr. Makepeace?" Her voice come out hoarse, like she'd screamed herself empty somewhere between here and Denver. "Yes, ma'am. I'm Silas." I let go her arm quick, gave her space. "Welcome to Timber Creek." She tried to smile. Failed. Then her carpetbag split open right there on the platform, old leather finally given up, and sheet music scattered across the ice like dead leaves. Blank pages, every one of them. I thought that was peculiar, but I didn't say nothing, just knelt down and started gathering them up while the stage driver tossed her trunk onto the snow with about as much care as he'd show a sack of potatoes. "That's her?" Marjorie Kettering's voice cut through the wind. She'd come out from the trading post, arms crossed, face hard as the frozen ground. "The Philadelphia woman?" "Mrs. Kettering." I kept my voice level, kept picking up them pages. "Yes, ma'am, this is Miss Holloway, my intended. Looks half dead already." Marjorie weren't one for kindness when curiosity was available. 3 days late, too. Stage driver says they had to wait out the storm in Leadville. Says she cried the whole time. Wouldn't eat, wouldn't talk. Just cried. I looked up at Beatrice. She'd gone white as the snow around us, humiliation painted across her face clear as day. Her hands was shaken so bad she couldn't even hold on to the bag handles no more. "Well, she's here now," I said, standing up with them scattered pages, "and we best get moving before this weather turns worse." "Silas." That was Oz Chen, my only real friend in these parts. Half-Chinese prospector who'd been prospecting the same played-out claim for 5 years, mostly 'cause he liked the solitude. "You sure about this? Winter ain't no time for—" "I'm sure." I handed the pages to Beatrice, our fingers touching brief. Hers was ice cold, even through her gloves. "Gave my word to the broker. That's the end of it." "Your word," Marjorie snorted. "To marry a woman sight unseen? What kind of fool?" "The kind who keeps his promises." I picked up Beatrice's trunk, heavier than I expected, and started toward my wagon. "Miss Holloway, if you'll follow me." She didn't move. Just stood there on that platform with tears freezing on her cheeks, looking like she wanted the earth to open up and swallow her whole. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "Weren't talking to me. Weren't talking to nobody in particular. I'm so sorry." That's when I seen the bruises on her wrist where her sleeve had rode up. Finger-shaped marks, purple turning to yellow. Fresh enough to still be tender. Old enough to have happened back east. Something in my chest went tight. "Ain't nothing to apologize for," I said, gentle as I could manage. "You're cold and tired, and you've traveled 3,000 miles. That'd break anybody down. Come on now. Wagon's just over here." I wrapped her in the buffalo hide I kept on the bench seat, got her settled while Marjorie and the others watched like we was some kind of theater show put on for their entertainment. Oz helped me load the trunk, gave me a look that said, "You're either the kindest man I know or the biggest fool," and I couldn't rightly say which. The horses knew the way home even through the ice fog. Beatrice sat beside me, silent except for this hummin' she was doing under her breath. Nervous habit, I figured. Some tune I didn't recognize. 2 hours into the ride, through snow that was coming down harder now, I tried to make conversation. Cabin's nothing fancy, but it's warm. Got everything you'll need. And my nephew Clyde, he'll be there. Boy don't talk, but he's good company. She didn't answer, just kept humming that same tune, over and over, like it was the only thing keeping her from flying apart completely. We crested the last hill before my land, and I pointed through the white. There, see the smoke? That's home. Beatrice looked where I was pointing. Then she grabbed my arm hard enough I felt it through my coat. Mister, make peace, she said, voice shaken. I need to tell you something before we get there. Something that might make you turn this wagon around. I looked at her, really looked at her, and seen something I recognized. Same look I'd seen in my mirror after Sarah died. The look of someone who'd lost everything and was waiting for the next blow to fall. Ma'am, I said slow, unless you're wanting to turn around, I reckon whatever it is can wait till we're inside by the fire. Ain't nobody should have to confess in a blizzard. Her grip on my arm loosened. She nodded once, sharp, like she was making a decision. We rolled up to the cabin just as the door swung open. There stood Clyde, 11 years old, skinny as a fence post, holding my rifle like it was the only thing between him and the end of the world. Soon as he seen it was me, his shoulders dropped, but his eyes went straight to Beatrice. For a long moment they just stared at each other. The boy who couldn't speak, and the woman who'd cried herself empty. Then Clyde did something he ain't never done before. He set down that rifle, walked right up to the wagon, and held out his hand to help her down. Beatrice took it, and when her feet hit the ground and she swayed from exhaustion, Clyde caught her elbow same way I had at the station, steadying her, gentle-like. This is Clyde, I said, watching something pass between them I couldn't quite name. My brother's boy, lives with me now. Beatrice looked down at him, and for the first time since she'd stepped off that stage, something in her face softened. Hello, Clyde. I'm Beatrice. She paused, then added quiet. You don't have to talk if you don't want to. I understand. The boy's eyes went wide. He nodded once, then turned and headed back inside, leaving the door open behind him. An invitation. I helped Beatrice across the threshold, and soon as that door closed behind us, shutting out the wind and the ice and Marjorie Kettering's judgment, she collapsed. Not fainted, just her legs gave out like puppet strings cut. I caught her before she hit the floor, and that's when I felt it. She weren't just cold and exhausted, she was burning up with fever. Clyde, I barked. Heat stones in the fire, quick now, and get every blanket we got. The boy moved fast, no questions asked. I laid Beatrice on the bed, my bed, only one in the cabin, and started pulling off her wet things through a blanket for modesty. Her teeth was chattering so hard I thought they might crack. Ma'am, I said, keeping my voice steady, even though my heart was hammering. You understand I got to get these wet clothes off you or you'll die. She managed a nod. I understand, she whispered. I trust you. 3 words, simple as could be. But they hit me harder than any vow I'd make in front of a preacher. This woman didn't know me from Adam, had every reason not to trust another man long as she lived, judging by them bruises, and still she said it, I trust you. By the time we got her warm and dry and wrapped in Sarah's old shawl, it was full dark outside. The fever had her shaken even worse, mumbling things I couldn't make out. Clyde sat beside the bed, just watching her with them serious eyes of his. She gonna be okay? He wrote in the soot on the hearthstone. First thing he'd said all day. I don't know, boy, I told him honest, but we're sure as hell gonna try. Outside, through the walls of my cabin, I could hear the wind picking up. Storm was getting worse. Weren't nobody getting in or out for days now. Which meant whatever secrets Beatrice Holloway was carrying, whatever demons chased her out here from Philadelphia, whatever was in them blank pages and behind them bruises, we was gonna have plenty of time to get acquainted. Just the 3 of us. Snowbound. And something told me that by the time this storm passed, nothing in my life was gonna be the same. The fever broke around midnight. I was dozing in the chair by the fire, Clyde curled up in his loft above, when I heard her voice cut through the darkness. Where am I? Not panicked, just lost. You're safe, I said, keeping my voice low so as not to wake the boy. My cabin, Timber Creek, Montana Territory. You been out about 6 hours. I heard her shift in the bed, blankets rustling. I remember the cold and you caught me. Yes, ma'am. Silence for a bit. Then, I'm wearing different clothes. Had to get them wet things off you. Kept my eyes where they belonged and Clyde helped. He was burning up with fever, hypothermia and lung sickness both, near as I could tell. Thank you. Her voice was stronger now. I should get up. I'm taking your bed. You'll stay right where you are. I stood, stirred the coals, added another log. The light flared up, and I could see her propped on one elbow, Sarah's shawl wrapped around her shoulders. Her hair was down, red as autumn leaves, and without all that Eastern pinning and primping, she looked younger, more real. I can't cook, she said sudden, or clean properly, or sew worth a damn. The marriage broker's letter, I lied about most of it. I poured water from the kettle, handed her a cup. Drink this. She took it, hands still shaking some. Aren't you angry? You paid for a wife who could manage a household. I can barely manage myself. What can you do? I asked, settling back in my chair. She blinked. What? You said what you can't do. I'm asking what you can. She thought on that, sipping the water. I can play piano, by ear. I can't read music, but if I hear something once, I can play it. I can teach mathematics, literature, history. I can do figures in my head faster than most people can with pencil and paper. I can. She trailed off. That's not useful here, is it? Boy needs teachin', I said, nodding toward the loft. And I need someone who can handle the books. Ranch accounts get away from me something fierce. As for cooking and such, that can be learned. You willing to learn? Yes. No hesitation. I'll do whatever it takes. I won't be useless. Then we'll figure it out. She looked at me like I was speaking a foreign tongue. Just like that. Just like that. Morning came cold and bright. The storm had passed, leaving everything buried under 3 feet of new snow. I was outside digging a path to the barn when I heard it. Piano music, rough and unpracticed, but recognizable. Clyde had uncovered Sarah's old instrument in the corner, and Beatrice was playing it. The thing hadn't been tuned in 8 years, half the keys stuck, but she was making something beautiful out of it anyway. I came back inside to find Clyde standing beside the piano, one small hand pressed flat against the wood, feeling the vibrations. His eyes was closed, and there was something on his face I ain't seen since before his folks died. Peace. Beatrice seen me and stopped playing. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Keep playing, I said. She did. And Clyde kept his hand on that wood, swaying just a little, like the music was moving through him. When she finished, the boy opened his eyes and looked at her. Really looked, the way he used to look at his mama. Then he reached out and took her hand, placed it on the piano beside his, and tapped the wood 3 times. Thank you. That's when I knew we might actually make this work. The next few days settled into a rhythm. I taught Beatrice how to work the wood stove without burning everything. She taught Clyde his letters, using soot and hearthstones since we didn't have proper schooling materials. I showed her how to split kindling. She was terrible at it, but she kept trying. She showed me how to organize the ranch accounts in columns that actually made sense. Evenings, she'd play piano while Clyde felt the music and I worked on mending tack. Sometimes she'd hum along and I'd catch myself humming too without meaning to. Fourth night after Clyde had gone up to his loft, she finally told me the rest. The headmaster's son, she said quiet, staring into the fire. Richard Whitman. He discovered I couldn't read music. I'd been faking it for 3 years, learning everything by ear, pretending to sight read. He said if I was kind to him, he'd keep my secret. Her hands was clenched in her lap. When I refused, he told his father I'd tried to seduce him, that I was teaching the children inappropriate things. His father believed him. Everyone believed him. They dismissed me, evicted me from my boarding house. The women I thought were friends crossed the street to avoid me. And the bruises? I asked. She pulled her sleeve up, showing them in the firelight. Richard caught me leaving the school after I'd gathered my things, said I owed him for his silence. When I still refused, she let the sleeve drop. His father pulled him off me, told me if I ever showed my face in Philadelphia again, he'd have me arrested for theft. Said the sheet music I'd purchased with my own wages was school property. So you ran. So I ran. She looked at me then, searching my face. Are you sorry you sent for me, now that you know? I thought about Sarah, who'd been everything proper society said a woman should be. Delicate, obedient, quiet. Who'd died anyway? All that propriety not worth a damn against mountain fever. Then I looked at Beatrice, who'd survived scandal and violence and 3,000 miles of travel, who played music for a boy who couldn't hear it proper but loved it anyway, who couldn't cook worth spit but was willing to learn. No, I said. I ain't sorry. She started crying then, not the desperate tears from the station, but something softer, relief maybe. We'll make this work, I told her. Legal marriage in spring when the pastor comes through. Till then, you got a home here, you and the boy both. Why? She whispered. Why are you being kind to a ruined woman? Because you ain't ruined. You're just wounded. And wounded things can heal, given time and care. We sat there quiet after that, listening to the fire crack and the wind sing through the pines. I thought we'd turned a corner. Thought maybe the worst was behind us. I was wrong. Fifth morning, Oz showed up at dawn, half froze from riding through the night. He stumbled through my door, ice in his beard, looking like death. Silas, he gasped. We got trouble. Bad trouble. What kind? Marshal Cord was in town yesterday, asking about your new wife. Real specific questions, where she come from, what she looked like. Did anyone see marriage papers? Oz grabbed my arm. He had a telegraph from Philadelphia, official one. Says there's a warrant out for Beatrice Holloway, theft and moral corruption. My blood went cold. That's impossible. Line's been down for weeks. Lines came back up 2 days ago. First thing through was that warrant. Oz looked past me to where Beatrice stood frozen by the piano, all color drained from her face. Cord's riding out here today. Says he's got legal obligation to question her. Says if you can't prove she's your lawful wife, he's got grounds to take her into custody. We ain't married yet, I said slow. Was waiting for spring. Then you got about 6 hours to figure something out. Oz pulled off his hat, ice crackling as he twisted it in his hands. Because Cord ain't just enforcing the law. He's been asking about your land, too. The water rights, the timber. He's got plans, Silas. And your wife, or whatever she is right now, that's his leverage. Beatrice sat down hard on the piano bench. I'll go with him. I won't let him hurt you or Clyde because of me. The hell you will, I said. Clyde appeared at the top of the ladder, still in his nightshirt, eyes wide with fear. He climbed down quick and planted himself in front of Beatrice, arms crossed. The message was clear. You ain't taking her without going through me first. Oz shook his head. 6 hours, Silas. What are you gonna do? I looked at my nephew, fierce and silent. At Beatrice, broken but not beaten. At the life we'd been building these past 5 days, fragile as new ice, but real. I'm gonna protect what's mine, I said. And I'm gonna need your help. You know I can't practice law no more, Oz said careful. Got disbarred in California, ain't legal. Don't need you to practice law, just need you to remember it. I grabbed my coat off the peg. How fast can frontier marriage be done? Oz's eyes went wide. You're serious. Dead serious. Cord gets here. He finds a legally married woman under my protection. How do we make that happen? A slow smile spread across Oz's face. Well now, that's a different question entirely. Outside, the sun was climbing over the peaks, painting the snow gold and pink. Beautiful morning, the kind that made you believe in God's grace. But I could hear horses in the distance, coming fast. And I knew our time for peace was running out. We had 4 hours. Oz worked fast, sketching out what we needed on the back of an old wanted poster. Frontier Marriage Law, 1885. 2 witnesses, declaration of intent, cohabitation. Don't need a preacher if you're more than 50 miles from established church. We're 63 miles from the nearest church, I said. Checked when I first settled here. Then it's legal. But Silas, Oz looked up, serious as I'd ever seen him. Once you do this, it's binding. Can't undo it after just 'cause it was convenient. She'd be your wife, legal and permanent. I glanced at Beatrice. She sat at the piano, Clyde pressed against her side, both of them watching me, waiting to see if I'd really go through with it. Get Marjorie, I said. We need 2 witnesses. Oz rode out. I started cleaning up the cabin, suddenly mattered that it looked respectable. Beatrice stood, smoothing down the borrowed dress she was wearing, one of Sarah's old ones I'd kept. You don't have to do this, she said quiet. I can run. Head north into Canada. They won't follow me there. You'd die in the mountains this time of year. Better than dragging you down with me. I crossed to her, took her cold hands in mine. Listen to me. I'm doing this because it's right. Because that boy there, I nodded at Clyde. He ain't smiled in 2 years till you came. Because you deserve a chance at something better than running forever. And because... I stopped, surprised by my own words. Because I think maybe we could be good for each other. Given time. Her eyes filled. I can't promise to be a good wife. I don't know how. Then we'll figure it out together. Marjorie arrived within the hour, Oz behind her. She stomped snow off her boots, looked around the cabin with them sharp eyes of hers. This legal? She demanded. Legal as anything out here, Oz said. You willin' to witness? Marjorie studied Beatrice for a long moment. You runnin' from something criminal? You hurt somebody? No, ma'am, Beatrice said, voice steady. I'm running from lies and powerful men who don't like being told no. That I can respect. Marjorie nodded once. I'll witness it. We stood before the fireplace, me and Beatrice, Oz speaking the words, Marjorie and Clyde as witnesses. Weren't no flowers or fancy dress. Just practical necessity dressed up as a wedding. Silas Makepeace, Oz said formal. Do you take Beatrice Holloway as your lawful wife, to protect and provide for, in sickness and health till death parts you? I looked at her, really looked. Seen the fear there, but also hope. Seen someone who'd been beaten down but wouldn't stay down. I do. Oz turned to Beatrice. Do you take Silas Makepeace as your lawful husband, to stand beside in hardship and peace, to build a life within this territory? She took a shaken breath. I need him to know something first. Beatrice, I started. No. Her voice got stronger. You're giving me your name, your protection, your home. You deserve the whole truth. She looked at Marjorie, at Oz, at Clyde. I can't read music. Never could. I learned every piece by ear and pretended I could sight read. The scandal back east, it started when the headmaster's son discovered my secret. He tried to blackmail me into relations. When I refused, he told everyone I'd tried to seduce him. His father believed him. Everyone believed him. She turned back to me. I'm a fraud and a failure. I lost my position, my reputation, everything I worked for. And now you're offering me a new life. But you should know what you're getting. A woman who built her whole career on a lie. The cabin went silent, except for the fire crackling. Then Clyde did something that shocked us all. He walked to the hearthstone, picked up a piece of charcoal and wrote in big letters, "Not a lie, just different." Marjorie made a noise, half laugh, half sob, out of the mouths of babes. Even silent ones. I took Beatrice's face in my hands, gentle. You think that matters? You think not reading marks on paper makes you less? Clyde can't talk. Oz here ain't supposed to practice law no more. I couldn't save my first wife from fever. We're all something other than what we were supposed to be. But, question is, do you take me? Knowing I'm a stubborn fool who lives too far from civilization, who's got a traumatized nephew to raise, who might lose this land to a corrupt marshal. Do you take that? She smiled then, first real smile I'd seen from her. Yes, God help me, yes. Then we're agreed. I turned to Oz. Finish it. By the authority vested in me by absolutely nothing except necessity and frontier law, Oz said, grinning now, I declare you husband and wife. Silas, you can kiss her if that suits you. I kissed her. Brief and respectful, but there was promise in it. Promise of something more, given time. Marjorie clapped. Clyde wrote finally on the hearthstone, and for about 5 minutes, we were happy. Then we heard the horses. 6 riders came up the trail, Marshal Elwood Cord in the lead. I'd seen him around town. Tall man, handsome in that polished way Eastern folks admire, with cold blue eyes that missed nothing. He sat his horse like he owned the mountain. Makepeace, his voice carried through the clearing. Need a word about that woman you brought home? I stepped out onto the porch, Beatrice behind me. Marshal, bit early for social calls. Cord's eyes went straight to Beatrice, lingered too long, made my skin crawl. Got official business. Telegraph came through from Philadelphia. Warrant for a Beatrice Holloway. Theft and corruption of morals. He pulled a paper from his coat. That wouldn't be the woman standing behind you, would it? That's my wife you're speaking on, I said, keeping my voice level. Mrs. Beatrice Makepeace. And I'll thank you to keep a civil tongue. Cord's eyebrows went up. Your wife? That was fast work. You two married proper? Frontier marriage, witnessed and legal. Oz Chen performed the ceremony. Marjorie Kettering witnessed it, along with my nephew. How convenient. Cord dismounted, his men following suit. Mind if I see the documentation? Oz appeared in the doorway, papers in hand. Got it right here, Marshal. Declaration of intent, signed by both parties, witnessed and dated, all according to Territorial Statute 47, Section 9. Cord took the papers, read 'em slow. His jaw got tighter with every line. This says you married her today. This morning. That's right, I said. Awful coincidental, don't you think? Warrant comes through and suddenly she's under your protection as a married woman? Coincidental or not, it's legal. You got a problem with that? Take it up with Judge Wallace. Cord stepped closer, voice dropping low enough only I could hear. Listen, Makepeace, you're a good man. Respected. Don't throw that away on some Eastern whore who'll bring you nothing but trouble. My fist was in his face before I could think better of it. He went down hard, blood spraying from his nose. His men reached for their guns, but Oz had his pistol out faster, and Marjorie, God bless her, appeared with a shotgun from somewhere. Easy now, Oz said calm. Let's everybody stay peaceful. Cord got to his feet, dabbing at his nose with a kerchief. His eyes was pure murder. You just assaulted a federal marshal, he said soft. Dangerous. I could arrest you right now. You insulted my wife, I said. Out here, that's grounds for worse than a punch. We stood there, 6 guns pointing every which way, breath steaming in the cold air. One wrong move and somebody was gonna die. Then Beatrice stepped forward, putting herself between me and Cord. Marshal, she said, voice steady, despite the fear I could see in her eyes. If you have legitimate questions about my past, I'll answer them. In town, before the judge. But I won't have bloodshed on my account. Cord smiled, wiping blood from his lip. Well now, the lady has manners. All right, Mrs. Makepeace. We'll do this proper. You and your husband be in town Monday morning. Judge Wallace wants to see them marriage papers and hear your side of things. You don't show. He looked at me. I come back with more men and less patience. Understood? We'll be there, I said. Cord mounted up, but before he rode off, he leaned down close. That land of yours has good water rights. Timber, too. Be a shame if legal troubles forced you to sell cheap. Real shame. Then he was gone, his men thundering after him, leaving us standing in the snow with the knowledge that this was just beginning. Marjorie lowered her shotgun. Well, you two sure know how to start a marriage. Is it over? Beatrice asked, still shaken. No, Oz said quiet. It ain't even started yet. Cord don't care about that warrant. He wants your land, Silas, and she's his excuse to take it. Clyde appeared at my side, took my hand and Beatrice's, joined them together. Then he wrote in the snow with his boot, Together. I looked at my nephew, at my new wife, at the friends who'd stood with us. Together, I agreed. But as night fell and we barred the door, I couldn't shake the feeling that Cord had left something behind. Some poison we hadn't seen yet. And I was right. Come morning, we found a note nailed to the barn door. She ain't your wife. She's evidence. And I'm coming to collect. Sunday morning came quiet. Too quiet. I was out checking the horses when I noticed it. Birds gone silent. Not a chirp or a wing flutter in the trees, just wind through the pines and my own breath steaming in the cold air. Animals know things before people do. That silence made the hair on my neck stand up. Inside, Beatrice was attempting breakfast while Clyde set the table. She'd gotten better at the stove, only burned things half the time now, instead of always. The smell of coffee and frying bacon should have been comforting. Weren't storm coming, I said, hanging up my coat. Beatrice looked out the window at the clear sky. Doesn't look like it. Trust me, big one, maybe by tonight. I poured coffee, hands steadier than I felt. We need to talk about tomorrow. She set down the spatula. Clyde stopped mid-motion, holding a fork. Judge Wallace is fair, I continued. But Cord's gonna make his case strong as he can. He'll paint you as a criminal, me as a fool, and our marriage as a sham. We need to be ready. What if the judge sides with him? Beatrice asked, quiet. Then we appeal. Go to the territorial governor if we have to. And if that fails? I didn't answer. Didn't have to. We both knew what happened to women convicted of moral crimes in the territories. Prison back east or worse. Clyde grabbed his slate. He'd started using it regular now to communicate. Wrote, "We run?" "No," I said firm. "We stand and fight, legal and proper." The boy shook his head, wrote again. "Cord cheats." "Probably," I admitted. "But running just proves we got something to hide." Beatrice touched my arm. "Silas, I've been thinking about what Cord said, about your water rights and timber. He doesn't really care about me. He wants your land." "I know it." "Then maybe if I leave, he'll have no leverage. You could keep your property. Clyde stays safe." "No." I turned to face her full. "We're past that now. You're my wife. Legal and witnessed, that means something out here. Means I don't abandon you first sign of trouble. Even if it costs you everything?" "Even then." She studied my face like she was memorizing it. "I don't understand you." Back east, men traded their principles for far less than land and water rights. Then I reckon that's why I'm out here and they're back there. We ate breakfast in tense silence, each of us lost in our own thoughts. After, while Beatrice cleaned up and Clyde did his lessons, I went to check the property lines. Needed to see if Cord had been snooping around, messing with markers. Found Oz instead, riding up fast. "Town's buzzin'," he said without preamble. "Cord's been spreading stories. Says you're harboring a known criminal. Says the marriage is fake. That he interrupted the ceremony before it was complete." "That's a damn lie." "Course it is. But lies travel faster than truth, especially when they're told by a man with a badge." Oz dismounted, following me as I checked the fence line. "There's more. He's got witnesses coming in, people who'll testify they seen suspicious behavior." "What people? What behavior?" "Don't matter if it's true. Just matters that he's building a case." Oz stopped walking, made me look at him. "Silas, there's something else. Something I ain't told you yet." The way he said it made my gut clench. "What?" "I know Cord, from before. From California." Oz's face was grim. "He's the reason I got disbarred. I was prosecuting a land fraud case. Big ranchers forcing out homesteaders through legal manipulation. Cord was the marshal who enforced their evictions. I found proof he was taking bribes, fixing evidence. When I brought it to the judge, Cord turned it around, claimed I'd fabricated documents, violated ethics rules. Had me disbarred before I could present my case. Jesus. He's good at it, Silas. Real good. He finds leverage, applies pressure, and by the time folks realize what happened, he owns half the county." Oz met my eyes. "He'll destroy you if he can, and he won't feel a damn thing doing it." We walked back toward the cabin in silence. The sky was changing now, clouds rolling in from the north, dark and heavy with snow. "How long you figure we got?" I asked. "Storm? 4, maybe 5 hours?" Oz looked at the clouds. "Trial? That's tomorrow. But Silas—" He hesitated. "There's talk. Some of the miners, the rougher elements. Cord's been buying drinks, planting ideas. About improper women corrupting decent communities. About men who enable them. He's raising a mob. Not yet, but he's laying groundwork. If the trial goes wrong, If folks get worked up enough. Oz didn't finish. Didn't need to. I thought about them blank pages of music Beatrice had carried, about the bruises on her wrists, about a boy who'd found his voice defending her, about what it meant to stand for something when standing was the hardest thing you could do. Then we better be ready for anything, I said. That afternoon, I taught Beatrice to shoot. She was terrible at first, flinched every time the rifle kicked. But she kept at it, jaw set with determination. By the time the snow started falling, she could hit a target at 50 yards. Not great, but good enough. "Why are you teaching me this?" she asked, reloading with cold, numbed fingers. "Because out here, everyone needs to know how to protect themselves. Or because you think we might need protecting soon?" I didn't answer. Just showed her how to clean the rifle proper. Evening came early, the way it does before a storm. We ate supper by lamplight, venison stew that Beatrice had actually managed to make edible. Clyde was quiet, even for him, kept looking toward the door like he expected it to burst open any second. "Tell us a story," Beatrice said sudden to the boy. "One of your drawings. Tell us what it means." Clyde looked surprised, then thoughtful. He went to his corner, brought back a piece of birch bark he'd been scraping pictures into, showed mountains, a tiny cabin, 3 stick figures holding hands. He pointed to each figure, wrote on his slate, "Papa, Mama, me." Not his dead parents, us. Beatrice's eyes filled. I had to look away, throat tight. "That's right, son," I managed. "That's us." The wind picked up outside, rattling the shutters. Snow was coming down heavy now, big wet flakes that'd pile up quick. Then we heard it. Dogs barking in the distance. Not the normal bark of hounds on a trail, the frantic bark of animals smelling danger. I moved to the window, pulled back the curtain. Lights, torches, maybe a dozen of them, coming up the trail through the snow. Too many for a social call, too organized to be random. "Oz," I said quiet, "take Beatrice and Clyde up to the loft. Now." "What is it?" Beatrice asked. But she could hear it now, too. Voices carrying on the wind. Angry voices. Men who'd been drinking and talking themselves into righteous fury. "Mob," Oz said flat. "God damn it, Cord worked faster than I thought." I grabbed my rifle, checked it was loaded. "Get up there. Don't come down no matter what you hear." "Silas," Beatrice started. "Go," I barked. They climbed the ladder, Oz practically pushing Beatrice and Clyde ahead of him. I could hear Clyde protest in silence, scrambling to get back down, but Oz held him firm. The torches got closer. I could see faces now, miners mostly, some ranch hands I recognized. Maybe 15 men, all told. Not the whole town, but enough. Led by Marshal Cord on his horse, badge gleaming in the firelight. They stopped 20 feet from my door, formed a semicircle, torches held high, casting dancing shadows on the snow. Cord dismounted slow, deliberate. "Make peace. Come on out. We need to talk about that woman you're harboring." I opened the door, stepped onto the porch, kept the rifle low but ready. "Marshal, this is private property." "You got business, come back in daylight with proper papers." "This is proper," Cord called back. "Citizens' concern about public morality. We got questions about your so-called wife. About whether this marriage is legitimate or just a scheme to harbor a criminal. We'll answer them questions tomorrow, before the judge, legal and proper." Tomorrow might be too late. Cord stepped closer, and I could see his face now in the torchlight. Smile playing at his lips. He was enjoying this. "See, we did some research. Talked to some folks. Found out some interesting things about Beatrice Holloway. About what she really did back in Philadelphia. You don't know nothing about her, don't I?" Cord pulled a paper from his coat. "Got testimony here from Richard Whitman himself. Says she seduced him. Says she tried the same with other students' fathers. Says when he rejected her advances, she threatened to ruin his family's reputation unless they paid her off. Every word was a lie, but they was lies designed to inflame. I could see it working. Men muttering to each other, faces hardening. "That's false," I said loud enough for all to hear. "And you know it." "Then let her come out and defend herself," Cord shouted. Let these good men hear her side, unless she's too cowardly or too guilty to face her accusers." The crowd murmured agreement. One man, drunk miner named Sullivan, yelled out, "Whores don't belong in decent communities. Send her back where she came from." Others took up the cry, not all of them, but enough. The mob mind was taken hold, turning men into something uglier than they'd be alone. "You all know me," I called out, raising my voice. "Known most of you for years. I'm asking you to trust my judgment, to let the law handle this proper tomorrow." "Law's too slow." Sullivan again. "While we're waiting for judges and trials, she's corrupting this community, corrupting that boy of yours." That's when Clyde appeared in the doorway behind me, Beatrice's hand in his. Despite Oz's efforts, they'd come down. The boy's face was fierce, and he had his slate held high with one word written large: liar. He pointed straight at Cord. The marshal's smile faltered. Just for a second, but I seen it. "Boy don't know what he's saying," Cord said. "He's been influenced by—" Clyde shook his head violently, wrote again. "You lie. She good. You bad." Simple words from a child, but they cut through the mob's momentum. Several men looked uncomfortable now. They might be worked up, but attacking a woman under a child's protection, that was a line most frontier men wouldn't cross. Cord saw his moment slippin'. His hand moved toward his gun. "Don't," I said quiet, rifle coming up smooth. "Don't you dare." We stood frozen, me with my rifle, Cord with his hand on his pistol, 15 men with torches watching to see who'd break first. Then Marjorie Kettering's voice cut through the night like a whip crack. "Elwood Cord, you put that hand down or so help me God I'll shoot it off." She came walking out of the darkness beyond the torchlight, her shotgun trained steady on the marshal. Behind her came others, not many, but enough. Patterson from the general store, Chen, the telegraph operator, 3 of the ranch wives, people who'd decided this mob had gone too far. "This ain't your business, Marjorie," Cord said, hand still on his gun. "Like hell it ain't. You're threatening a neighbor on his own property without due process. That makes it everyone's business." She looked at the crowd. "You men ashamed of yourselves. Coming out here with torches like this is the old country. We got laws here. We got courts. You don't like what Silas done, you take it up with Judge Wallace tomorrow like civilized people." Several of the men lowered their torches, looking sheepish now. The drunk courage was wearing off, replaced by the cold realization of what they'd almost done. Cord saw his mob dissolving. "This ain't over, Makepeace. Never thought it was. Tomorrow, Judge Wallace, you better have answers." He mounted his horse, jerking the reins hard enough to make the animal dance. "And if you don't show, I'm coming back with legal authority to drag you all to jail. Her for theft and fraud, you for harboring a criminal, and that boy—" He looked at Clyde with something dark in his eyes. "That boy goes to an orphanage where he can be raised proper." Then he was gone, most of the mob trailing after him, torches disappearing into the snow like demons sinking back to hell. But 3 of the torches stayed behind. Sullivan and 2 others, too drunk or too mean to quit. "We ain't done here," Sullivan slurred, waving his torch. "That woman's a whore and we all know it. Silas, you step aside and let us handle this proper." He took a step forward. That's when Beatrice raised my spare rifle, the one I'd taught her to shoot with that afternoon. Her hands was shaken, but her voice was steady as stone. "You come one step closer," she said, "and you'll find out this whore can shoot straight." Sullivan stopped, looked at her, looked at me, at Clyde standing fierce beside her, at Marjorie and the others behind us. "Ain't worth it," one of his companions muttered, tugging his arm. "Let's go." They backed away slow, then turned and stumbled off into the storm. We stood there in the snow, breathing hard, as their lights disappeared. Marjorie lowered her shotgun finally, and I realized my hands was trembling. "Well," Marjorie said, breaking the silence, "that was exciting." Beatrice dropped the rifle and collapsed against the doorframe. Clyde caught her, holding on tight. I went to 'em both, wrapped my arms around 'em. "It's over," Beatrice whispered. "Thank God it's over." But I looked at the torch marks burned into my snow, at the boot prints of 15 men who'd come close, too close to violence. No, I said quiet. It ain't over. It's just beginning. Because come dawn, we had to face Judge Wallace, and I knew Cord would have spent the night preparing his case, gathering his lies, sharpening his knives. We had one night to figure out how to fight a man who'd already proven he'd burn everything down to get what he wanted. One night to save everything that mattered. After Marjorie and the others left, we barred the door and settled in for what none of us expected to be a peaceful night. Clyde wouldn't go up to his loft, kept shaking his head every time we suggested it, planting himself on the floor between me and Beatrice like a guard dog. Finally, I just spread blankets by the fire for all three of us. If trouble came again, we'd face it together. Beatrice sat at Sarah's piano, fingers resting on the keys but not playing, just touching them like she was drawing comfort from the wood itself. I keep thinking about tomorrow, she said quiet. About what Cord will say, what he'll make me sound like. Don't matter what he says. Matters what's true. Does it? She looked at me, and in the firelight I could see every bit of exhaustion she carried. Truth didn't save me in Philadelphia. Won't save me here either if folks don't want to hear it. I moved to sit beside her on the bench. Our shoulders touched, small contact, but it felt like something more, like an anchor in rough water. Then we make 'em hear it, I said. And if they won't listen, we find another way. She was quiet a moment. Then her hand moved from the keys to cover mine. Just rested there, warm and steady. Why? She whispered. Why risk everything for someone you barely know? I thought about that. About Sarah, who I'd loved in a simple, easy way. About the years alone after, convincing myself I was fine. About the woman beside me now, complicated and wounded and fierce as a mountain cat when cornered. Because Clyde looks at you like you hung the moon, I said finally. Because you stood up to 15 men with torches and didn't break. Because I turned my hand over, laced my fingers through hers. Because maybe I'm tired of being alone, and maybe you are too. She leaned her head against my shoulder. Didn't say nothing. Didn't have to. That's when Oz came through the door, stomping snow off his boots, grinning like he'd found gold. Got news, he announced. Good news for once. We both sat up straight. What kind? Been digging through territorial law books all night. Found something Cord don't know about, or hopes we don't. Oz pulled out a worn legal tome, opened it to a marked page. Homestead Protection Act of 1887 says any legal resident of a homestead who's performed essential labor for said property has claim to co-ownership after 30 days of residency, regardless of prior marriage status. English, Oz, I said, means even if he could prove your marriage was rushed or convenient, Beatrice has been working this homestead, cooking, cleaning, teaching the boy. That's essential labor, which means she's got legal claim to stay here whether you're married or not. Can't be evicted, can't be forced off the property. Beatrice's grip on my hand tightened. Are you certain? Certain as death and taxes. It's territorial law. Supersedes federal warrants for property disputes. Cord wants her gone. He's got to prove she ain't contributed nothing, and we got witnesses who'll say otherwise. For the first time since the mob left, I felt something loosen in my chest. Hope, maybe. Or just the knowledge that we had one more card to play. Tomorrow, I said. We hit him with everything. The marriage, the homestead law, the truth about what happened in Philadelphia. Oz's grin faded. About that, there's more news. Bad news. And there it was. The other shoe I'd been waiting to drop. Cord's brought in a witness, Oz continued, voice going grim. Man named Richard Whitman, the headmaster's son himself, arrived on tonight's stage, despite the storm. He's gonna testify tomorrow that Beatrice tried to extort money from his family after he rejected her advances. Beatrice went pale as fresh snow. He's here? Richard's here? Staying at Cord's house. Protected. Prepared. Oz looked at her with sympathy. I'm sorry. I know facing him again. No. Her voice came out stronger than I expected. She stood up, squared her shoulders. No, I'm glad he's here. Because this time, I ain't running. This time, I'm gonna look him in the eye and call him the liar he is. Clyde jumped up, grabbed his slate, wrote in big letters, "We all call him liar." Despite everything, I smiled. That's right, son. We all do. But as we settled down to try and sleep, I couldn't shake the feeling that Cord had one more trick up his sleeve. Something we hadn't seen coming. Something that would test us harder than anything yet. Outside, the storm howled like all the demons of hell were scratching at our door. And come dawn, we'd have to face them. I didn't sleep, just laid there listening to Beatrice's breathing on one side, Clyde's on the other, waiting for first light. Around 4 in the morning, I gave up pretending and went to stoke the fire. That's when I heard the knock, soft, careful, like whoever was out there didn't want to wake the whole house. I grabbed my rifle, crept to the door. "Who's there?" "Emma Cord." A woman's voice, barely above a whisper. "Please, I need to talk to you. It's important." The marshal's wife. Last person I expected at my door before dawn. I opened it slow, rifle ready. She stood there in the snow, no coat, just a shawl wrapped tight around her shoulders. Even in the dim light from the cabin, I could see the bruise on her cheek. Fresh one. "Mrs. Cord, you shouldn't be here." "I know." She was shaken. From cold or fear, I couldn't tell. "But I had to come. Had to tell someone before it's too late." Beatrice appeared behind me, pulling on her wrapper. "Let her in, Silas. She's freezing." We got Emma by the fire, wrapped her in blankets, put hot coffee in her hands. She wouldn't look at us at first, just stared into the flames like she was gathering courage from somewhere deep. "My husband," she finally said, voice hollow. "He's not what people think." "What I've pretended he is." "We know he's corrupt," I said, careful. "If that's what you mean." "It's more than that." She pulled back her sleeve, showed bruises like the ones I'd seen on Beatrice. Old ones, new ones, layered like a map of violence. "He's been hurting me for years. Started the day after we married. Gets worse when things don't go his way." Beatrice sat beside her, took her hand gentle. "Why are you telling us this?" "Because tonight, after that mob left, he came home angry, angrier than I'd ever seen him. Started drinking, ranting about how you'd embarrassed him, how that woman," she looked at Beatrice, "how you'd ruined his plans. He was saying things, terrible things, about what he'd do after the trial." My gut clenched. "What things?" Emma's eyes finally met mine. "He doesn't care about the warrant from Philadelphia. Never did. He manufactured most of it, paid Richard Whitman to come testify, forged telegraph documents. All he wants is your land. The water rights, specifically. There's a mining company offering him $10,000 if he can deliver clear title to your creek." 10,000. Oz had appeared on the ladder, been listening. "That's enough to buy half the territorial legislature." "He's got it all planned," Emma continued, words coming faster now. "Judge Wallace will find the marriage legal, but Cord's going to arrest Beatrice anyway on the theft charges. Says he'll hold her in territorial jail while it's sorted out. Could take months. Meanwhile, you can't work the land properly without help. You'll fall behind on mortgage payments." "I don't have a mortgage," I interrupted. "You will by tomorrow afternoon. Cord's got papers drawn up. Gonna claim you borrowed money from the territorial fund to pay bride price, get you married. Says he's got proof you signed for it. It's all fake, but by the time you prove that, he'll have foreclosed." The room went dead silent except for the fire crackling. "Why are you helping us?" Beatrice asked quiet. "He's your husband." Emma looked at her, and I seen something break in her eyes. "Because I've been where you are, trapped, blamed for things I didn't do, and I watched him destroy good people for 13 years while I stayed silent because I was afraid." She pulled out a bundle of papers from inside her shawl. "These are his ledgers, real ones, not the ones he shows the territorial auditor. Proof of embezzlement, bribery, fraud, everything." She set them on the table like they was sacred texts. "And this," she added, pulling out one more paper, "is his correspondence with Richard Whitman. Letters proving he paid Whitman to come testify, paid him $500 to lie under oath." Oz grabbed the papers, started reading by lamplight. His eyes got wider with every page. "Emma," he said slow, "do you understand what you're giving us? This is enough to have him arrested, disbarred, imprisoned. I know. She stood up, straightening her shoulders. That's why I'm doing it. I'm done being afraid. Done letting him hurt people. She looked at Beatrice. You stood up to a mob last night. You didn't run, didn't break. If you can do that, I can do this. Beatrice stood too, took both Emma's hands. Where will you go when he finds out? I have family in Denver. My sister. Been writing to her in secret for months, planning this. Soon as the trial's over, I'm taking my daughter and leaving. She smiled then, sad but determined. One way or another, today's the day I get free. The first light of dawn was touching the mountains when Emma slipped back out into the snow. We watched her go, this small woman who'd found the courage to stand against the man who'd beaten her into silence. We can win this, Oz said, still holding them papers like they was made of gold. With this evidence, Cord's finished. But I couldn't shake the feeling that a man with that much to lose would do anything to keep from losing it. Get ready, I said to Beatrice and Clyde. We leave for town in an hour. Clyde wrote on his slate. Scared. Me too, son, I admitted. Me too. But as we dressed and prepared, loading guns we hoped we wouldn't need, gathering papers and evidence, I kept thinking about Emma Cord, about a woman finding strength she didn't know she had, about how courage was contagious, spreading from one person to another like fire jumping from torch to torch. We rode out as the sun broke over the peaks, painting the snow gold and red like the world was on fire. Behind us, smoke rose from our chimney, home waiting for us to return. Ahead, the town of Timber Creek sat quiet in the valley, courthouse bells ringing to call folks to judgment. And somewhere in that town, Marshal Elwood Cord was waking up to his last day of power, not knowing yet that his own wife had just handed us the keys to his destruction. The real battle was about to begin. The courthouse was packed tighter than Sunday service. Every seat filled, folks standing along the walls, more crowding outside the windows trying to hear. I'd never seen the town turn out like this. Not for elections, not for hangings, not for nothing. Judge Wallace sat behind his bench, old and gray, but sharp-eyed as a hawk. He banged his gavel once, and the room went silent. Court's in session. Case of the Territory versus Beatrice Makepeace, formerly Holloway. Marshal Cord, present your evidence. Cord stood, confident as a cat with a cornered mouse. He laid out his case piece by piece. The warrant from Philadelphia, testimony about Beatrice's inappropriate conduct, the sudden marriage he claimed was designed to obstruct justice. Then he called Richard Whitman to the stand. I felt Beatrice go rigid beside me. This was the man who destroyed her life back east, handsome in that soft way city boys are, wearing a suit that probably cost more than my whole ranch. Mr. Whitman, Cord said smooth, tell the court about your relationship with the defendant. Richard's voice was cultured, practiced. She was a teacher at my father's academy. I was a student there preparing for university. She began paying me special attention, asking me to stay after lessons, making inappropriate suggestions. Liar, Beatrice whispered beside me. When I rejected her advances, Richard continued, she became vindictive, threatened to claim I'd assaulted her unless my family paid her off. When we refused, she stole valuable property, sheet music and teaching materials, and fled west. Every word was smooth as butter and twice as slippery. I could see folks in the crowd believing it, nodding along. Your witness, Cord said to Oz, smiling like he'd already won. Oz stood slow. Mr. Whitman, you traveled all the way from Philadelphia to testify? Yes, justice demands it. Must have been expensive. Stage fare, hotels, time away from your studies. Who paid for it? Richard hesitated. Just a second, but it was there. My family, naturally. Naturally. Oz pulled out Emma's letters. Your Honor, I'd like to submit evidence, correspondence between Marshal Cord and Richard Whitman, dated 3 weeks ago. In it, Marshal Cord offers Mr. Whitman $500 to come testify against Mrs. Makepeace. The courtroom erupted. Judge Wallace banged his gavel hard. That's a forgery, Cord shouted, jumping to his feet. Is it? Oz handed the letters to the judge. That your signature, Marshal? Your official seal? Cord's face went red, then white. Those were stolen from my private correspondence. By your wife, Oz interrupted. Who'll testify that you've been manufacturing evidence, bribing witnesses, and embezzling territorial funds for years. Emma stood in the back of the courtroom. Every eye turned to her. The bruise on her face was visible even from where I sat. Emma! Cord's voice dropped to something dangerous. Sit down. Now. No. Her voice shook, but she kept speaking. I won't be silent anymore. I have proof. Ledgers, letters, everything. You're not just corrupt, Elwood. You're a thief and a liar, and I'm done protecting you. The judge was reading the letters now, his face getting darker with every line. Marshal Cord, these appear genuine. You have anything to say? Cord looked around the room, at Emma, at us, at the crowd turning against him. Then his hand moved toward his gun. Don't. I had my rifle up before he could draw. Half a dozen other men did the same. For a moment, I thought he'd try it anyway, go down in violence rather than disgrace. Then his shoulders sagged and his hand dropped. The charges against Mrs. Makepeace are dismissed, Judge Wallace declared. Marshal Cord, you're under arrest for bribery, fraud, and obstruction of justice. Bailiff, take him into custody. As they dragged Cord away, still swearing and threatening, Beatrice grabbed my hand so tight it hurt. Clyde pressed against her other side, and I felt something in my chest crack open, relief so strong it was almost painful. It's over, Beatrice whispered. It's really over. But Judge Wallace banged his gavel again. Not quite. There's still the matter of the Philadelphia warrant, the theft charges. My stomach dropped. We'd defeated Cord, but the original charges still stood. However, the judge continued, pulling out a different paper, I've received a telegraph this morning from Wendell Academy in Philadelphia. Seems the headmaster, Richard's father, has dropped all charges. Says there was a misunderstanding, and Mrs. Makepeace is welcome to keep the materials in question as settlement for wrongful termination. Richard Whitman went pale. Father wouldn't. Your father, Judge Wallace said cold, just learned his son took $500 in bribe money. I imagine he's reconsidering quite a few things about you right now. The courtroom broke into chaos, people cheering, others arguing, Emma Cord crying in the back while Marjorie held her. Judge Wallace banged his gavel one last time. Case dismissed. All charges dropped. Mr. and Mrs. Makepeace, you're free to go. We walked out of that courthouse into winter sunshine, and for the first time since Beatrice stepped off that stage, I felt like we could breathe. But as we headed for the wagon, I saw movement in the alley beside the courthouse. Cord, hands cuffed, being led to the jail. He looked at us with such pure hatred that it froze my blood. This ain't over, Makepeace, he called out. You hear me? It ain't over! The deputy shoved him forward, but his words hung in the air like a curse, and deep in my gut, I knew he was right. Men like Cord didn't go quiet into defeat. They went down swinging. 3 days after the trial, Cord escaped. Nobody knew how. The jail was supposed to be secure. Iron bars, locked door, deputy on watch. But come morning, the cell was empty, and Deputy Morrison was found unconscious in the back room, lump on his head the size of a hen's egg. Inside job, Oz said, standing in my kitchen that afternoon. Had to be. Someone let him out. Who? I asked, though I already had suspicions. That's what we need to figure out. Fast. Because a man like Cord, caged and humiliated, he's dangerous now. We spent the next 2 days fortified, me and Beatrice and Clyde, windows shuttered, rifles loaded, waiting for Cord to make his move. It came on the third night, not with violence like I expected, with fire. I woke to Clyde shaking my shoulder, pointing frantic toward the window. Orange light flickering through the shutters. I threw them open and my heart stopped. The barn was burning, flames eating through the old wood like it was paper, horses screaming inside. Get water, I shouted, already running for the door. Beatrice grabbed my arm. It's a trap. He wants you outside. The horses are already dead or will be, but we don't have to be. She was right. This was classic Cord. Create a crisis, draw us out, finish us when we were vulnerable. But knowing it was a trap didn't mean we could ignore it. Them horses were worth more than money. They were our livelihood. I grabbed my rifle. Stay inside. Bar the door after me. Like hell. Beatrice picked up the other rifle. We do this together or not at all. No time to argue. We went out the back while Clyde stayed inside like we told him, though I could see him in the window, holding his own small rifle, watching our backs. Once the barn was lost. We could see that immediate, but the horses had broken through the back wall in their panic, were stampeding through the snow. We could round 'em up later if we survived. Makepeace, Cord's voice came from the darkness beyond the firelight. Got you now, don't I? Show yourself, I called back. Why? So you can shoot me? I don't think so. He laughed, and it was the laugh of a man who'd lost everything and decided to take the world down with him. Thought I'd let you watch everything burn, your barn first, then your house. Then maybe I'll take that woman of yours, show her what a real man feels like before I put a bullet in her head. Rage flooded through me, hot and blinding. I started toward his voice, but Beatrice grabbed my arm. Wait, she whispered. Listen. I heard it then, multiple footsteps circling through the snow. He wasn't alone. Who's with you, Cord? I shouted. Friends. Loyal friends who know which side pays better. A figure stepped into the firelight. My gut clenched. Deputy Morrison, the same man who was supposed to be guarding Cord's cell. Sorry, Silas, Morrison said, not sounding sorry at all. But Cord's offering $200 for your land. That's more than I make in 2 years as deputy. You sold out for money? Beatrice's voice was sharp with disbelief. Didn't sell out, just chose the winning side. Morrison raised his gun. Now both of you drop them rifles before this gets messier than it needs to. I was calculating odds. 2 of us, at least 3 of them, caught in the open with fire at our backs, when I heard the most beautiful sound in the world. Rifles cocking. Lots of them. Oz stepped out of the darkness to our left, Winchester ready. Marjorie appeared on our right with her shotgun. Then Patterson, then Chen, then half a dozen others. Neighbors and townfolk, all armed, all pointing weapons at Cord and Morrison. Drop it, Morrison, Oz said calm. You're outnumbered. How? Morrison started. You think we're stupid? Marjorie snapped. Soon as Cord escaped, we've been watching this place in shifts, waiting for him to show himself. Cord came forward then, gun out, eyes wild. He looked like he'd been living rough, beard grown in, clothes torn, something broken behind his eyes. All of you, he said, swinging his gun around at the crowd. All of you chose this whore over me? Over a lawman who served this territory for 10 years? You ain't no lawman, Oz said. You're a thief and a wife-beater who got caught. Now put the gun down before someone gets hurt. Someone's gonna get hurt, all right. Cord's gun swung toward Beatrice, starting with her. Everything happened at once. Cord's finger tightened on the trigger. I threw myself in front of Beatrice. A shot rang out, but not from Cord's gun. From the cabin window. Clyde stood there, my old pistol smoking in his small hands. The shot went wide. Boy was only 11, and the recoil nearly knocked him over. But it was enough. Cord flinched, his own shot going into the snow. Then Oz and the others were on him, wrestling him down. Morrison tried to run, but Patterson tripped him, sat on him till they could get his hands tied. The fight went out of Cord then, just collapsed in the snow, sobbing like a child. I had everything, he kept saying. Everything, and you took it. You took it all. Emma appeared at the edge of the crowd, wrapped in Marjorie's spare coat. She looked at her husband, really looked at him, then turned away. No, she said quiet. You threw it away yourself. All of it. They hauled Cord and Morrison to the Territorial Marshal's office in Cheyenne that night. Real law enforcement, not the corrupt kind. Judge Wallace promised they'd both face trial, real charges this time, no escape. As the sun came up, we stood looking at the burned-out barn. Total loss. Would take months to rebuild, money we didn't have. We'll help, Marjorie said, appearing at my elbow with coffee. Everyone will pitch in. That's what communities do. And they did. Over the next weeks, neighbors showed up with lumber, tools, labor. The barn went up faster than it burned down, stronger than before. But one thing still bothered me. Why'd Morrison do it? I asked Oz one evening as we worked. Oz looked uncomfortable. Money weren't the only reason. He's been courting a girl, Sally Patterson. She's pregnant. He needed money fast for a wedding, a house. That don't excuse, no, but it explains. Oz set down his hammer. Cord knew exactly what buttons to push, found everyone's weakness, and exploited it. I thought about that, about how easy it was to fall when someone offered you what you desperately needed. What'll happen to Morrison? Prison, probably. Unless, Oz paused. Unless Sally's father decides to show mercy. Patterson's like that sometimes. And damned if Patterson didn't. Paid Morrison's bail, gave him work at the store, made him marry Sally proper. The whole town watched a man get a second chance he maybe didn't deserve, but somehow needed. Grace, Beatrice said that night as we laid in bed. Our bed now, no more sleepin' separate. That's what they call it back east. Unearned forgiveness. We got plenty of that ourselves, I reminded her. Whole town could have turned on us, didn't. She curled against me. Because you showed them something worth believin' in. Family built on choice, not blood. Love earned through action, not words. Outside, I could hear Clyde in his new room, the addition we'd built onto the cabin, hummin' that same tune Beatrice always played. The boy who couldn't speak had found his voice through music. Everything seemed settled, seemed safe. But late that night, I woke to find Beatrice gone from bed. Found her at the window, staring out at the rebuilt barn. What is it? I asked. Just making sure it's real, she whispered. That this life is really mine. That it won't disappear like everything else did. I wrapped my arms around her from behind. It's real. We're real. And we ain't going nowhere. She leaned back against me. Promise? Promise. But even as I said it, I saw movement in the tree line, just a shadow, probably nothing, probably just a deer or the wind, probably, but I kept my rifle close that night, just in case, because out here, you learn to trust your gut, and my gut said our story wasn't quite finished yet. Spring came late that year, but when it came all at once. Ice breaking on Timber Creek sounded like rifle shots echoing through the valley. The ground thawed, turned to mud, then dried into workable soil. Wildflowers bloomed overnight, purple and yellow carpets spreading across the meadows like God had spilled paint. We stood on the porch watching it happen, me and Beatrice and Clyde. The boy had taken to talking regular now, though he still went quiet when things got emotional. Some wounds heal slow. Never gets old, I said, breathing in that smell of earth waking up. Every spring feels like the first one. Beatrice leaned against me, her hand resting on her belly. 3 months along now, though she wasn't showing much yet. Will the baby come in winter? Late fall, the way I figure. November, maybe December. Another winter child. She smiled. Seems fitting. A rider appeared on the trail. Oz, coming fast. My hand went automatic to my rifle, but he was waving, not threatening. News, he called out, swinging down from his horse. You ain't gonna believe this. We went inside where coffee was hot and the table was set for visitors. Had gotten used to folks dropping by regular now. Community had a way of growing on you once you let it. Cord's dead, Oz said without preamble. The words hit like a physical blow. How? Hanged himself in his cell night before trial. Used his own belt. Oz pulled out a newspaper, set it on the table. Made the territorial papers. They're calling it cowardice. Facing justice was too much for him. I thought about Cord in that cell. Everything stripped away. His badge, his power, his wife, his reputation. Thought about a man who'd built his whole life on control, watching it all crumble. How do you feel about it? Beatrice asked me quiet. Ain't sure, I admitted. Part of me wanted him to face trial, pay proper for what he done. But another part, I trailed off. Another part is relieved, she finished. Because now it's truly over. No more looking over our shoulders. That wrong of me? She took my hand. No, it's human. But there was more. Oz pulled out another paper. This one official looking with seals and signatures. Cord's estate is being liquidated to pay his debts. Turns out he owed money all over the territory. Bad investments, gambling bribes that didn't pay off. Everything he owned is going to auction. Oz paused, meaningful, including his water rights and timber claims, the ones he tried to steal from you. I don't want 'em, I said automatic. Don't want nothing that came from him. Ain't about wantin', it's about needin'. Oz spread out a map. Look, if those claims go to the mining company, they'll dam the creek upstream. Your water dries up, your land's worthless. But if you buy 'em, and the territorial court's offering them to you at cost, compensation for what you suffered, you control the whole watershed. Secure your future and any other homesteaders who settle nearby. I looked at Beatrice. She was studying the map, her teacher's mind already calculating. How much? She asked. $300. We have it, she said immediate. The money from my savings plus what we've earned. We can do this. And we did. Come June, we owned not just our original homestead, but the water rights that fed half the valley, which meant we had a responsibility now, not just to ourselves, but to everyone who depended on that water. We'll form a collective, Beatrice suggested one evening as we planned. Let folks buy shares, democratize access. No one person should have the power Cord tried to wield. So that's what we done. The Timber Creek Water Cooperative, with me as manager and Beatrice as secretary. 15 families bought in that first year. By the second year, it was 30. Judge Wallace came out personal to sign the charter, found us working in the expanded garden. Beatrice had doubled its size, was teaching other wives her techniques. Mrs. Makepeace, he said, tipping his hat. Word is you're organizing a proper school. Yes, sir. 8 students so far. Clyde helps with the younger ones. The judge smiled. Territory needs teachers, good ones. There's funding available if you're interested in making it official. And that's how Beatrice became the first certified teacher in Timber Creek Valley with a real salary and everything. But the biggest surprise came in August. Emma Cord returned from Denver, not as Emma Cord, but as Emma Thatcher, having taken back her maiden name. She had her daughter with her, a quiet girl of 6 named Ruth, and a proposition. I want to start over, she told us, sitting in our front room. I have money. My father left me an inheritance Elwood never knew about. I want to buy land here, build a house, raise my daughter somewhere decent. You want to stay? Beatrice asked, surprised. After everything? Because of everything. Emma looked at both of us. You showed me what courage looks like, what real partnership is. I want that for Ruth. Want her to grow up seeing women who stand up for themselves, men who respect that. She bought the plot next to ours. By winter, she had a cabin built. By the following spring, she was courting Patterson's eldest son, the one who ran the store. Married him come summer in a quiet ceremony with just family and close friends. Life had a way of surprising you like that. Our daughter was born November 15th, 1890, during the first snow. We named her Sarah, after my first wife, because Beatrice insisted. She's part of this too, Beatrice said, holding our red-haired baby girl. Part of what brought us here. We honor that. Clyde was besotted with his baby sister. 15 now and shooting up tall, voice finally settled into something deep. He'd talk to Sarah for hours, telling her stories about the mountains, about how her mama was the bravest woman in the territory, about how her papa could track a rabbit through 3 feet of snow. The boy who couldn't speak had become a storyteller. One evening year after Sarah's birth, I found Beatrice at the piano. She was playing that same tune she'd hummed on our first ride to the cabin, the one I'd never asked about. What is that? I finally said. She stopped, looked at me with tears in her eyes. It's nothing, just something I made up, on the stage from Denver, when I thought my life was over. I hummed it to keep from screaming. And now? Now it's our song. The song of surviving, of finding home in the last place you expected. She patted the bench beside her. Sit with me? I did. She played while Clyde sang along. He'd learned all her songs by heart. Sarah gurgled from her cradle. Outside, snow was falling soft, covering our valley in white. You know what I realized? Beatrice said, quiet. That day on the platform, when you gave me your handkerchief and said I didn't have to pretend, that was the first true thing anyone had said to me in years, and it changed everything. All I did was tell the truth. No. She leaned her head on my shoulder. You saw the truth. The real me underneath all the fear and pretense, and you decided I was worth knowing, worth saving, worth loving. I kissed the top of her head. Best decision I ever made. Second best, she corrected. First was keeping your word to the marriage broker, showing up at that station even though you didn't have to. Maybe she was right. Maybe the whole thing started with just deciding to do the honorable thing, even when it was hard. From there, everything else followed. The partnership, the love, the family, the community. All of it built on that one simple choice. To keep your word, to tell the truth, to stand by folks when they needed standing by. Years later, when Clyde had his own ranch and Sarah was teaching at the school her mama founded, when Emma's daughter Ruth married a good man from over the pass, when the Timber Creek Water Cooperative was serving 50 families and turning away mining companies who wanted to exploit what we'd protected, years later, folks would ask me, how'd you do it? How'd you build all this from nothing? And I'd tell them the same thing every time. Weren't nothing. Just told the truth when lies were easier. Stood by folks when standing cost me something, and loved the woman who showed up broken, because I recognized myself in her fractures. Sometimes, I'd say, the strongest things are built from pieces that know what it is to break. They'd nod like they understood, but I'm not sure they did. Not really. You had to live it to understand. Had to stand in that snow with a woman crying her heart out. Had to look at a boy who'd lost his voice. Had to face down a mob with nothing but your word and your rifle and decide that was enough. Had to choose love over safety, truth over convenience, community over isolation. Had to learn that family ain't about blood. It's about who stays when the blizzard comes. Who holds the door when the mob's outside. Who plays music for a boy who can't hear it proper but loves it anyway. That's what we built in Timber Creek Valley. Not just a ranch or a school or a cooperative. We built proof that dignity matters more than reputation, that second chances ain't just for folks who deserve them, that love can grow in the harshest soil if you tend it careful. And every spring, when the ice breaks on the creek and the wildflowers bloom, I stand on my porch with Beatrice beside me and think, this is what it means to be home, not the place. The people, not the past, the choice, not what you survive, what you build after. That was near 20 years back now. Beatrice is still teaching, though her hair's gone more silver than red. Clyde runs the water cooperative. Turned out he had a head for management nobody expected. Sarah's married to a good man, expecting our first grandchild come spring. And me? I'm still here on this mountain, still checking fence lines and tending cattle, still grateful every damn day for that February storm that brought a broken woman to my door. You know what I learned through all of it? Dignity ain't something you're born with. It's something you choose when choosing it costs you everything. Family ain't blood. It's who stays when the blizzard comes. And love? Real love ain't about rescue. It's about standing beside someone while they save themselves. If you've ever felt like you were running out of chances, like your past had used up all your future, I'm here to tell you different. Long as you're breathing, there's time to start over. Time to find folks who'll say, you don't have to pretend with me. That's all I got. If this story touched you some, let me know where you're listening from. I like knowing these old tales still matter. Till next time, may your mountains be steady, your winters be survivable, and may you find someone who sees you true.